tonight. Another Regina police officer is found to have used a police database to get personal information. Fire destroys a family's new home near Saskatoon. And a new way for women to get timely access to breast assessments.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Thursday, December 18th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. I'm Ethan Williams. Thank you for joining us. Saskatoon police have charged a 45-year-old former realtor with publicly inciting hatred. Brandon Taylor Moore made anti-Semitic posts online that a Jewish organization says were truly horrific. Hannah Spray has our top story.
Just to be sure, though, if you don't like what I'm saying, it's just because you haven't done your research.
Brandon Taylor Moore's account on X is a constant stream of anti-Semitic comments. But as of Thursday, he's not allowed to post here anymore. Saskatoon police have charged the 45-year-old with public incitement of hatred. Moore appeared in Saskatoon Provincial Court on Thursday. He was released from custody with several conditions. He's not allowed to post anything online, and he has to stay at least 1 block away from any Jewish community centers. Police say they began investigating Moore last year after receiving a complaint from the Jewish organization B'nai B'rith Canada. The group's director of research says Moore's posts contain some of the most virulent anti-Semitism he has ever seen.
Mr. Taylor Moore, over a number of years, has demonstrated that he has a propensity for inciting vitriolic hatred against the Jewish community. His posts online, which have only increased in volume and in intensity over the last several months, are truly horrific.
Police have also charged Moore with unsafe storage of a firearm related to a weapon that officers found during a search of his home. He's set to be back in Saskatoon Provincial Court in January. Hannah Spray, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Regina police are once again defending their force. This after another police officer has been found to have inappropriately accessed private information through the police database. Alexander Kwan has more.
The Regina police constable's name is Clinton Duquette, and he's been found to have been snooping through the Regina Police Service's files looking for private information. His conduct was so egregious and the police service's response so minimal that the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner has referred the incident to the Attorney General for prosecution. The Justice Department would not confirm whether it is investigating. All the details are found in a newly released report from the province's Privacy Commissioner. It says Duquette snooped through the personal information of 6 people over more than 3 years. The people included the officer's former partner and their family members. In total, he inappropriately accessed the personal information 67 times, overriding the safeguards meant to stop him. And when he was eventually caught, Duquette's access to the police database was not revoked.
In determining discipline, we look at other sort of practice within the policing community in the country. I also look at the officer's conduct record, whether or not there have been any sort of previous similar instances.
This is not the first Regina officer to be caught inappropriately accessing data. Robert Semenchuk used the information he got by snooping to start relationships with women. He was investigated, charged, and then resigned from the service. Semenchuk has since pled guilty. The chief of police says the 2 cases are nothing alike.
The 2 cases are similar only in the fact that there was an access to information, but the circumstances around each are remarkably different.
Last year, Duquette earned a salary of $125,000. His punishment from police was a 1-day unpaid suspension, more training, and a promise to not do it again. He remains on active duty. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
A former private school principal in Saskatoon will serve a jail sentence at home. Earlier this year, a jury convicted Duff Friesen on 1 of 4 counts of assault with a weapon. He was a principal at Christian Center Academy when he hit a student with a wooden paddle 23 years ago. On Thursday, a King's Bench court judge handed Friesen a 6-month conditional sentence order. That means he will serve his sentence in the community under strict conditions. In her decision, the judge said Friesen's moral culpability is high. Some of Friesen's former students were in court for sentencing.
This is also part of the healing journey for a lot of people that sat in silence with a lot of these really heavy things that happened to them through childhood. And this is what we can do on our part to make sure that this doesn't happen again, and people that are in positions of authority in these types of schools are better regulated.
Friesen has a second jury trial coming up next fall. He faces 7 more assault charges connected to his time at the school. People in many parts of Saskatchewan are digging out after being battered with freezing rain, wind, and snow Wednesday. Aliyah Marco Omene ventured out to see how the cleanup is going.
Getting around Saskatoon was a bit more challenging Thursday after a blizzard hit Wednesday. The city declared a snow event after receiving 11 centimeters of snow, and while most major routes have been cleared, the city warns some neighborhood streets are still icy as the deep freeze settles in. Further south, Regina was blanketed in snow and freezing rain. Many people spent the morning shoveling away the remnants of the storm.
Chisel away at it little at a time, and usually I just push it into the street, into the middle of the road, but so much this morning or overnight, so I just pushed it across the way.
Some sidewalks have not been cleared, making it challenging for those forced to be out and about.
Lots of people haven't shoveled yet, so it's very difficult walking and delivering mail. It's like a challenge for every mailbox.
In downtown Regina, cars are parked in all directions.
It's a lot of slanted parking too far from the curb, a lot of stuff like that, but can't really do much about it until the city gets the streets cleaned up.
With another storm brewing for the province Friday, Saskatchewan RCMP are still urging people to avoid all travel. It comes after reports of more than 80 collisions so far.
It's important that everyone who drives in Saskatchewan understands that they need to be prepared for winter weather. Sometimes it's going to impact your plans. You may have to cancel. There may be delays, and you need to be ready to face winter driving conditions if you must travel.
A sure sign that winter is only just beginning. Aliyah Marco Omene, CBC News, Regina.
A Saskatoon dentist is speaking out against the city's recent approval of a warming center in the Riversdale neighborhood. Epthemia Koutsaganis has run a dental practice in that neighborhood for over 30 years. She blasted City Council Wednesday over its homeless initiatives in the area.
Is this lack of transparency, lack of accountability, lack of communication to the business community of Riversdale that ignited my need to reach out. Riversdale and Riversdale Bid needs to be treated with respect. If this occurred in any other part of the city, the citizens would be up in arms and protesting.
Koutsaganis wants City Hall to halt new homeless services in Riversdale. She also wants the warming center moved elsewhere once the lease is up. She says homelessness is a citywide problem, but Riversdale should stop bearing the brunt. Regina City Council is nearing the final stretch of its 2026 budget debate. On Thursday, a flurry of amendments were debated and voted on as Council continues to face a historic mill rate increase next year. Council did approve 2 new employees to work on the city's homelessness plan and a plan to maintain Mosaic Stadium. Meanwhile, Councillor Dan Rashevich introduced several motions to save money, but all of them were voted down, including reducing city employee rewards, canceling the Winter City program, and cutting the food budget for council meetings.
If my constituents are having problems buying groceries, you know what? I can afford to put some money back. You know, it's going to be pennies, but whatever. Hey, you've heard me talk. Every penny counts. And pennies add up to dollars, and dollars add up to big dollars and millions.
City Council was able to make more cuts Thursday afternoon, saving $700,000. As of now, next year's mill rate increase is around 11%. The final vote is scheduled for Friday. More Alberta MLAs are facing recall petitions. Elections Alberta has approved another 2, including Provincial Justice Minister Mickey Amery. He, along with UCP backbencher Jackie Armstrong-Hominiuk, have been added to the growing list. Amery represents the riding of Calgary Cross. The petitioner says Amery has ignored constituent concerns and supports harmful policies. In response, Amery says he works for his constituents and that the recall law is being abused. There's a total of 23 MLAs now facing recall petitions. 22 are with the governing UCP, or almost half of its 47-member caucus. Big thanks to our crew working at our transmitter sites near Saskatoon for taking a time-lapse of Wednesday's blizzard, the storm packing quite a punch, of course. And after a one-day reprieve, we are bracing again for another round of wintry weather. Yes, there's more snow and more wind coming. I'll have all the details in your forecast after the break. A Saskatoon family is picking up the pieces after a weekend fire destroyed their home outside the city. Lane and Rebecca Gennick were returning from church Sunday when a neighbor called. They're still processing what happened to the house they had only lived in for 6 weeks. Dan Zakreski brings us that story.
There she goes.
In the end, all that was left to do was watch it burn.
Gone. It's gone.
Gone, but not forgotten.
Yeah, so you can see the backboard of the piano right there. So that was in the basement. And then you can see all the kitchen stuff. There's the sink there, dishwasher, microwave, stove. It's all piled in a pile there. And it used to be on the main floor, which was up here.
Lane and Rebecca Garrick lost all their belongings, except the clothes they were wearing and Lane's half-ton truck parked outside their garage. It's still there now because the keys were on the kitchen table. They are still up and down emotionally as they juggle their post-fire reality. Replacing clothing, getting kids to school, keeping appointments are all challenging, but both Rebecca and Lane are adamant on one point. As they sat parked watching the fire, they say everything that really mattered was inside the family minivan.
Some of the kids were having a bit of a hard time in that moment, and I just remember saying, do you know what? We're all together, we're safe, and we're a team. We can do this, you guys. And they were very strong to take some deep breaths, and I guess they were using, I don't know how they were just very brave, very strong.
For now, they are staying at Rebecca's parents' house. Despite their huge loss, she says there have been moments of bizarre humor.
Yesterday I got an image on my phone from the Dragonfly Amazon delivery guy, and he said, there's actually no doorstep. I will leave package in the barbecue.
Investigators weren't able to figure out how the fire started. Because no one died, there weren't any injuries, and it didn't seem suspicious, they're just leaving it at that. Lane Garrick says they hope to rebuild on the same property sometime next year. Dan Zakreski, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Well, we have survived winter part 1 with that clipper that moved through, but we are about to feel the impacts of winter part 2. And, well, it's not even technically winter yet. We'll take a look at the first system that moved through Saskatchewan over these last couple of days, bringing up to 25 centimeters in parts of eastern Saskatchewan around Bredenbury and Esterhazy. Regina and Saskatoon, it was a little tough to tell just how much snow we got because that wind was so strong. And so in some parts it was around 7 or 8 centimeters, and in some areas over 15 centimeters. Those winds, though, were the strongest in the southwest corner of the province, nearing 130 kilometers an hour in East End. That, by the way, is just shy of what an EF1 tornado would bring in terms of wind gusts in that part of the province. Other communities like Val Marie and Mankota seeing over 100 kilometer an hour wind gusts themselves. So now that that's over, we are awaiting the second system. No blizzard warnings this time around because the wind isn't going to be quite as strong, but we definitely have blowing snow advisories. And this time, this next Clipper system likely going to be bringing some heavy snowfall at times to areas north of Regina and through the Parkland region. So a bit of a play-by-play here. I think we're seeing things move in pretty quickly overnight as we get into early Friday morning. Specifically, just as we're kind of waking up and getting the commute underway Friday morning is when we're going to see that heaviest snow in Regina and Saskatoon. That pushes its way eastward into the Parkland region where it intensifies, bringing that heavy snow up through the northern grain belt as we get into the later morning hours. But it's largely over by the time we get into Friday afternoon. And even in terms of Saturday morning or so, we might actually see some clearing, especially out west. I think this model best encapsulates what we're going to be seeing. Regina, maybe a little closer to the 10 centimeter mark, but possibly 15, maybe 20 centimeters up in the Parkland region near Yorkton, and even as far west as Wynyard, possibly going to be seeing that. Saskatoon down around about 5 centimeters, I think, is what we're looking for total. Winds, though, going to pick up with this system as well, gusting over 60 as we get into early Friday. The strongest winds actually really coming Friday evening, which will bring gusts maybe over 70 and close to 80 in parts of southern Saskatchewan before things calm down for Saturday. I put an asterisk beside the temperature for Friday because it's actually going to be dropping back through the day into the mid-teens for Regina, 5 to 10 centimeters. Then we sit with some very cold air for the weekend before things get a little bit closer to seasonal as we get into the beginning of next week, and some clearing skies too. And we finally start to get closer to, well, actually quite above seasonal in terms of the overnight lows as well. And for Saskatoon, again, warmest we'll get is -11. We'll drop back to around -15 to 16 or so, up to 5 centimeters there, into the -20s for the weekend, and then back into the -teens or so for the start of next week before we get closer to seasonal for Thursday. A few chilly nights as well. Again, we'll be looking around -30 overnight Saturday into Sunday, and that's a chilly wind chill as well, around -30 on Saturday. A terminally ill cancer patient in Prince Albert is pushing back against parking fees at community oncology programs. The former city councillor argues the health authority's policy is inconsistent. As Aisha Ashraf reports, it's raising broader questions about access to care.
Dennis Ogrodnik is terminally ill with kidney cancer. After he was diagnosed, he started chemotherapy at the hospital in Prince Albert. At first, he parked for free. But then, last year, the hospital started charging for parking. And that, Ogrodnik says, is unacceptable for cancer patients.
That I should be fighting my disease, not my government.
Parking policies vary based on where you live and when you were diagnosed. Saskatchewan has 16 community oncology program locations to service people outside of Regina and Saskatoon. But only 3, Prince Albert, Yorkton, and Moose Jaw, charge patients to park. The other 13 don't. Ogrodnik began speaking out last year and says he was then offered free parking, which he didn't take.
If you're offering just me free parking, you're trying to buy me off and silence me, and I'm not going to do that. I can't be bought and paid for.
The Saskatchewan Health Authority now says cancer patients diagnosed prior to last year's policy shift are exempt and get free parking, but new cancer patients are required to pay. Across Canada, hospital parking policies vary. Several provinces have moved to reduce or eliminate parking fees. Earlier this year, Nova Scotia made hospital parking free for all patients. The person in charge of hospital parking operations in Nova Scotia says removing fees is about reducing barriers to healthcare.
The motivation really is around trying to make life easier for patients when life isn't very easy.
Back in Saskatchewan, the health minister says he has asked the SHA to review its parking policy, but hasn't yet set a timeline.
Once the SHA collects some more information, we'll have a discussion.
I just thought this doesn't make sense. This is cruel. This is mean-spirited for anybody that would think this is a good decision.
In a statement, the SHA admits its parking policy is inconsistent. It says cancer patients in Regina and Saskatoon have always paid for parking, and it's trying to standardize its approach. Ogrodnik says they're moving in the wrong direction, and he'll fight for free parking as long as he has the strength. Aisha Ashraf, CBC News, Prince Albert.
The Oscars are leaving broadcast TV and heading to YouTube. The longtime home of the awards ceremony, ABC, will broadcast through 2028. Then in 2029, YouTube takes over. The streaming company acquired the global rights for 5 years. TV viewership for the Oscars experienced a bump last year, but they've been declining overall in the last 2 decades. Stay with us. We're back after the break. The province and the Cancer Foundation of Saskatchewan have unveiled a new mobile mammography unit. The unit is the second one in the province. It replaces the previous unit, which was over 20 years old. About a third of breast screenings in the province are offered on mobile screening units each year, according to the Saskatchewan Health Authority. The new one will serve 42 rural and northern communities beginning early next year.
75% of women who are diagnosed with cancer as a result of being screened through breast check are at an earlier stage. With cancer becoming almost a chronic disease now, years of treatment, multiple treatments available. So the earlier we can detect cancer, the more treatments available and the better patient outcomes.
Bullich anticipates 14,000 women will be screened in the new year using the province's 2 mammography mobile units. Well, another wintry wallop begins overnight for much of south and central Saskatchewan, and those temperatures for a lot of us, especially the further east you are, continuing to stay into the minus 20s overnight. For northern Saskatchewan, again, extreme cold warnings have ended for the far north, but will still be well below minus 30, especially with a little bit of wind in many areas. That snow reaching the Churchill region as we get through the morning hours and a little bit into the afternoon, but it's really in south and central where we're going to feel the brunt of that. Again, the 7 a.m. hour, that's when the heaviest of the snow will be moving through Regina and then into the Parkland region, where I think it'll sort of bring its most intense bands before we get into the afternoon. Could still be even maybe a little bit of freezing rain through southern Saskatchewan as well, even as we get into the afternoon hours. And before we leave you, a rare find in the Arctic has scientists buzzing. A polar bear mom with one baby has adopted another cub. Researchers who track the bears made that finding on one of their regular visits to the bear population near Churchill, Manitoba.
When we landed the helicopter and approached this family group, one of the cubs had tags and one of them didn't. So we started scratching our heads because that was obviously a cue that this bear was new to this family group.
Richardson says Mama Bear likely adopted the cub because polar bears have a very strong maternal instinct, and it would have been difficult for her to just leave the cub crying on the frozen tundra. Researchers estimate the mother is about 5 years old and the cub is about 10 or 11 months. One happy family now. That is our news for this Thursday. You can head to our website or YouTube channel for more, or download the CBC News app. Thank you so much for watching.